Hi, welcome to the Cake is a Lie Cakes. Today I'm going to show you how to make a cake that looks like a raw chicken breast. Okay, to start with, now because I didn't have a YouTube video to watch for this, I actually went and got some chicken breast. I'm going to use this as a model for the cake that I'm making. So I'm just going to get it out and show you what well, you know what raw chicken breast looks like, presumably. I'm just going to set it to the side. So don't eat that, that's not what we're going to eat. For the actual cake itself, I'll put the description below, but essentially we're just baking a 7-inch cake, just a Victoria sponge. I'll put my recipe in the description below. To get the actual chicken breast shape, I'm going to let the roundness of the tin do a lot of the hard work, most of the hard work around the back of it, and I'm just going to cut a wee bit here. So I'm cutting into the cake around about, say, 4 o'clock, if that was a clock face you're looking at, a little curve in and out, and I know I'm going to cut back in and I'm coming back out round about 12 o'clock at the top, and that's my chicken breast. So I'm just going to checking it off the breast that I've got to the side there, and it looks about right. Okay, so it looks maybe slightly paisley patterned, and now you just want to trim it a wee bit because it's a bit boxy looking for something that's a natural chicken breast. Doesn't take an awful lot. Again, following just the curve around the back of the tin, which was round anyway, that's given us most of the hard work, and we're just trimming it down a wee bit, not an awful lot of trimming, and that's all that's to it. So you just need something that looks pretty much like what I've got there, and we're going to put a little bit of buttercream on it. So I've just got a bit of buttercream icing. Again, I'll put the description of how to make that below, but it's really simple. It's icing sugar and butter and a wee bit of vanilla just to give it a nice wee bit of flavour. You coat it all over. Once you've coated it, you can put it in the fridge if you want for a half an hour or an hour, and then give it another coat if you wish to. I didn't actually bother with that, and you'll see that it works out just fine. So a nice big coating of that, that's all you need there. Now we go into the really fun stuff. This is the bit that's going to turn it into something that looks a bit yucky that you don't really want to eat. So we're going to make some icing. This is just icing that I got from the supermarket already in a box. It's white, and we're going to make it ever so slightly pink. I don't want it to look too dark. Now, you don't add real blood to that. I don't know why that says that. That's clearly a lie. That's a few bits of just red food colouring that I've put in there, and you just want to work it into your icing. You can work it with your hands or just rolling pin it out, fold it, roll and pin it, just so that it becomes a nice uniform colour. Now, the great part about doing the raw chicken breast, your raw chicken breast that you cut might not look exactly like mine. That doesn't matter, because if you look at a packet of raw chicken breast, they're all going to look slightly different from each other. The same with this bit here. It doesn't have to be perfect. If by the time you've rolled it out and you start to think this is getting a bit boring and it's still a bit marbled, that doesn't matter, because if you look at something natural like what we're making, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have a bit of marbling in it, and that'll just add to the effect. That'll make it look even better. I've now got the colour that I want, and you can see it's only just off-white. It's a very, very pale pink, very subtle. That's all I need, that's what I'm looking for, because we're going to use a wee bit of food colouring later on to actually paint it up slightly to make it look a bit slimy and raw chicken breast-like. So at the moment now, I just need to roll it out quite flat, and then we can start to assemble it. We just put it over the chicken breast that we've pre-prepared the chicken breast shaped cake for. I've rolled it out till it's a couple of millimetres thick. I want it a wee bit thick because I'm going to sculpt a bit of shape into it. So you just press it down over, following the shape of the cake itself, just laying it under, and just cut off any of the excess icing that you've got there, put it to the side. You can use it for something else if you wrap it up. Just following the shape, cut it out. When you've cut off the excess, just shape it in so that it's really quite tight and it follows the shape of the chicken breast that you've done. Once you start to shape it, if you found you've still got a wee bit excess, you can still cut that out. Now, what I've done there, I've put a wee bit extra over it because the icing actually broke a wee bit. Now, if you're making a nice big cake, that might be a disaster, but like I say, it doesn't really matter for this. So I just took an extra bit that I'd cut off and I just put it over the wee hole that we'd made, and I'll work it in a wee bit later so as that it blends in enough that it's okay, like I say, for this type of cake. It doesn't have to be perfect. The next thing we're going to do, so once we've got it now covered in the icing, and what you've got hopefully looks quite like that. It looks, oh, almost looks yummy already, but it's going to look even better. We're going to start to give it a bit more shape and character to it. So that looks far too perfect to be a chicken breast. So next we're going to do some sculpting. I have some very basic tools. You can buy them from Amazon. I think that's where I got it. I'll describe it in the link below. Just these wee plastic tools, and they're very useful if you want to do this sort of cake making where you're trying to make it look like something that doesn't look very cake-like. If you don't have these tools, that's fine. You could use a butter knife, so something that's quite dull. It's not too sharp because you don't want to cut right through it. You're just impressing into it. You could actually just use the side of a spoon as well to get this sort of effect. So you're scoring it as opposed to cutting it. That's how you want to think of it. Score it quite a lot all over. You're trying to really take away the really smooth look that it had when it was just icing, the sheet of icing that went over it. You don't want it to look very smooth. It wants to look like it's been rough, that it, I guess, essentially that it used to have a bit of skin on it, and that bit of skin's been taken off of it. That's what the raw chicken breast underneath looks like. So we're giving it a good score. I'm now using one of the different tools, the wee kind of ball tool on the end of it, and what I'm doing with that is giving it more rumples. I think you can almost see there. So where I've scored it before, I'm now going back over it with this tool as well, so that we're getting big proper ridges and contours in the cake. Now the final part that we're going to do is we're going to decorate it, we're going to paint it. So this is just some food colouring. I'm using a red and a green and a yellow, and I'll explain why I'm doing that. But first of all, to show, I use these powders. I'll put the description. You can use any food colouring that you have in the house. If you just have the wee bottles from the supermarket, they're fine as well. The reason I'm using those colours, I'm using the red because I want it to have a very pink blood type hue to it. The yellow's just to lighten it slightly, and the reason I've put a bit of green in there is because I want it to not be a bright red colour. So I'm using the green almost to sort of kill the tone, kill the colour, to make it a little bit more muted, because I don't want it to look like something that's a bright scarlet colour. So I'm just going to paint this all over. So where you've put the ridges in, where you've done the scoring, that's where I'm going to concentrate on mostly, because that's what's going to pick up most of the pigment, most of the colour's going to look there. So you're going to get a really nice depth of colour here between the bits that you have scored on purpose and you've left all that contouring in it, and then over the bits at the top you're going to go a bit lighter handed on that. It doesn't matter. And we're just going to go right over all of the cake. I have a little set of paint brushes that I only use for baking, so that's what I'm using here. Once I've ran over it all once, I get another brush that I've just put a wee bit of water on, because I want to move the paint about a little bit. Okay, so the last detail that we're going to put in here is there was a little bit of fat on the chicken breast, so we're going to add that in. This is just a little bit of white icing that I had left over from before. I'm just going to roll it into a very small sausage that we're going to put down about halfway down the cake, roughly about half the length of it. So in order to prepare where that's going to go, I'm going to just score a little bit deeper than we have before. So you can see I'm just rolling the wee bit of sausage out, that's fine. Just checking the length of it, make sure it's okay. Yep, that looks good, I would say. So using the same tool as before, but this time I'm going to go a bit deeper. So if you've got your knife, this is really easy. And I'm actually scoring into the icing that I've put down before. So you can see I've gone quite deep there. I've not quite got down to the cake, but I've gone deep enough that you can see it's a big space. And I'm going to paint in there with the food colouring that we'd made up before. Something I meant to say about the food colouring before, make sure it's very wet. You want a lot of water in a bowl before you start adding the food colouring. It's just a tiny bit that you're putting in. So now I've scored it and I've painted so as it's dark, because when you open it up the inside has never been painted before. I've just placed the bit that we're using as fat into it. I'm just using the wee tool here, again also using my finger, so you can do the same. If you don't have the tools, your fingers will work just as well. The fat has to look like it's part of the same bit of chicken breast, so you work it in a wee bit, but it's okay if it comes out a little bit higher, because that's naturally what it's going to look like. Just a little bit of cleanup to go. So when I was putting that in and my fingers had a little bit of paint on it, I got a little bit of food colouring over the fat bit that I didn't want. So this is just a paintbrush that's just got water on it, and I'm just running over it with the paintbrush with water to lift up some of the colour that was there that I don't want to be in the cake. And then the last bit is really just me being a bit overly pedantic with how I want it to look. I'm making sure once again that the fat looks like it is part of the actual breast. So because it's a couple of separate bits of icing that are there, I'm making sure they're pressed together quite nicely. And once I've done that, giving it a wee press down again, I think, well, I've taken off a little bit too much of the colour around there because I was working it, so I just dab a little bit more in, round about where the fat is, which looks fine. It just, once again, it lifts out the fat part because it's white compared to the pink round about it, the kind of pinky, well, reddy, pinky, yellowy, green slash colour mixture that we made up. That, as you can see, looks lovely. What a delicious combination of colours. And that's just the last finishing touches on it that I'm putting there. And voila, that's you. You have your disgustingly delicious raw chicken breast cake. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please subscribe because I'm going to be making more videos of this type of thing. So cakes that look pretty disgusting, things that you maybe wouldn't necessarily want to go and eat, but actually that taste really, really good.